All right, hi guys, welcome to Unit 6, Week 2. So as promised, this week we are going to be working on a major project that still deals with group communication. So last week we learned about a lot of the basics of group communication, and this week we are going to go into application mode. So we are going to apply a particular theory and you do a little bit of research and look at some instances of this theory in action in history. I do find that this tends to be a favorite among students. Yes, it does require a little bit of work, but you get to look at some really cool stuff. So I hope you will enjoy it as much as I do. So first thing we're gonna do is look at the groupthink project assignment description. As I said, this is a major project, meaning it's worth 100 points, and these do factor into your grade much higher than our weekly assignments. So just make sure, with that said, you give this plenty of time. You have a full week to work on it. So if you need that, I would recommend it. It's not something you can kind of start the night before. So keep that in mind. Okay. So the purpose of this assignment is to familiarize you guys with groupthink and then apply it again to a particular case study. So you will learn more about this as we go through this unit, but groupthink is a theory, and I'll kind of give you a very basic overview, where essentially people in a group do things. It helps us explain why people do things in a group that they wouldn't normally do otherwise. So it's sort of that idea of like, why do people respond to quote unquote like mob mentality? Okay. So a lot of times in groupthink situations, your brain might be telling you, okay, nope, this is not like, I don't think this is correct, but there's a lot of pressure on group members to conform. And so eventually people get worn down and they do things, again, that they would not in their rational mind do otherwise. So it's amazing what can happen to the human brain. But again, you like see something in the news about a cult or something like that, and you're like, how does this happen? Like, how do these people do this? But it is a real thing, and groupthink will explain how this takes over. This is studied a lot too when looking at like juries. So one of the things that we don't want to happen is for this to occur when jurors are deliberating. Okay, so for example, let's say everyone else has decided that this person's guilty and you're the one holdout and they need a unanimous vote, but you really in your heart of hearts do not believe that they're guilty, and maybe you're sentencing them to death or life in prison. And so it's really important that you hold on to your feelings and your how you determined that went. Well, you're going to these people want to go home to their families. Like they're tired. They're waiting on just one person. So there will be lots of pressure exerted on this person to change their mind. And so this again kind of helps explain what happens in those instances. So we are going to look at 3 specific instances of where this has occurred in history. So you will do a little research and figure out which of these 3 that you want to choose. So your 3 options are the Jonestown Massacre, the Challenger disaster, and the Bay of Pigs invasion. So I've linked each of these here to have a little bit of an overview of what happened, so you can kind of do a little research. A very short overview. Jonestown, it's where the term drink the Kool-Aid comes from. Essentially, Jim Jones was a very charismatic preacher. He gets everybody together. They go over to this utopian society. Turns out it's not so great, and he convinces everyone, or most everyone, to commit suicide. So very sad. Again, trigger warning. There is, if you look up a lot of stuff, there are quite a few images that are a little bit distressing, given what happened. So that's one. But again, it helps us understand, like, why would people do this? These are rational, very smart people. What happened? The Challenger disaster, so 1986, NASA is sending up a space shuttle. There is every warning not to do it based on some different things. They choose to do it anyways, and it blows up a few seconds after takeoff. Okay. And then the Bay of Pigs invasions, when we tried to invade Cuba, did not go well. Again, lots of warnings about not doing this, and we chose to do it anyways. So those are the 3 options that you have. So you're going to choose one of those. This is not a group project. This is an individual project. So choose one that you want to study for this assignment. Then I'm going to give you the format. So this is a media project. You are going to take the information and you're going to represent it in using any sort of multimedia presentation you want. So that could be anything from like a Prezi. You could certainly do maybe a Padlet. We've used Padlets before, so you might want to organize it that way. Might want to do VoiceThread, where you have like images, but then you also talk over it. You can do a video such as this with some visual aids. I'm using ScreenPal, and you will use ScreenPal later in the semester for recording videos. It's great. You can make a website. You can make like if you're more of a writer and you want to make like a fake newspaper, there's all kinds of things that you can do in Google Docs that has some format. So lots of different options. However you want to represent it, and I will show you some examples, you go for it. So here is what you need to represent in this project. So it has really two different sections. One is the background of the event. So this is where your research comes in. A synopsis of what occurred, so who, what, when, where, why. You need to pick out 3 to 4 key individuals and give some background information on them. So who were they? What was their background? What was their role in the event that happened? And then this one's really important. So you need to do some research on what was happening in both the country or the world during this time. So groupthink doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It is a lot of times a result of what's going on in society. So what was happening in the social, political, or economic makeup of the country at that time that would make people do these things. So for example, if we look at Jonestown, you are looking at a time where definitely a lot of racism was present. One of the things Jim Jones preaches is that he's going to build this utopian society where everyone's accepted. There's a little bit of a downturn in economics, so people are kind of struggling financially. And so those types of things, if we're looking at, and there's many more, I'm just kind of give you a few examples. If you're looking at the Challenger disaster, this is the age of the space race. So very much we're pumping money into NASA. So NASA feels a lot of pressure to produce and make sure this rocket goes up, even though they've been told not to. So those are the types of things you want to look for there. And the second part of this is an application of groupthink. So you're going to identify 3 to 4 symptoms of groupthink that are present and provide examples from the event. I really want to see that you both understand what the symptom is and then can pull out specific examples to show that that symptom is illustrated in your event. What were the effects of groupthink? So 2 to 3 specific things that happened as a result, and then how you think it could have been prevented. For the symptoms of groupthink, I would use this particular, it's a very, pared down version of Janice's, oh gosh, I'm losing my words here. This is what happens when you have multiple kids and you have to stay up all night. Of the different symptoms. So it's kind of just broken down into short little bits here. So you have to pick 3 to 4 of these. And again, I think this is a nice condensed version. That's what I was looking for of the different symptoms. Cool. All right. And you obviously want to see some samples. So here are 2 samples that I'm going to show you of past work that students have done, I think. Cool. All right, here is one, the Challenger disaster. So this student, I think, used Canva. Canva is a huge suggestion I have. You can do like presentations, so it's a much more elevated version of like a Google Slides type thing, or you can do infographics like this. It's super user-friendly, and yeah, you can do as much as you want with it. So here's an example of the Challenger disaster. And then I'll pull one back. Sorry, my computer does not like loading that graphic. All right, and then our second one is a Jonestown example. Again, apologize for the delay. I think this one, I'm not sure if it was Canva as well, but again, you can kind of see some really cool things that they did in all this placement. Now, these are obviously people who really spend a lot of time like designing this. It doesn't have to, I don't want this to intimidate you. It doesn't have to be quite this involved. What's most important is that you represent all of the information, but these are some examples. So I'm going to go back to this. I've included the grading rubric here. So not only are you including information, but your presentation also needs to include visuals and or you can also have videos if you want to include those, but does need to have pictures included, okay? Because it is multimedia. The design, so whatever you choose to do, that's how I sort of grade the design. So for example, if you were to choose to do an infographic, well, infographics are kind of divided into different chunks. They use a lot of images, that type of thing. Again, Canva, I'd highly suggest because it's going to automatically give you a template. And so you can just kind of plug stuff in. If you're using something like Prezi, okay, it probably has some bulleted point information and then photos as you move through it. So just make sure that whatever design you're using, that you are kind of following best practices for that design. The most important thing I want to point out here, hopefully you're still with me in this video, is the research part. So you need to have at least 3 sources, and they need to be cited in MLA format somewhere in your presentation or included as a separate Word document. But most important in this whole presentation is that everything has got to be in your own words. Okay. I do run all of this through plagiarism checkers. Unfortunately, every semester, it's pretty easy to detect. I have students who, in my mind, commit accidental plagiarism. So because it's not a paper, they sort of think that, oh, they can copy something and put it over in like a bulleted form in a presentation. This is still considered plagiarism. So it has to be in your own words. Okay. You really need to make sure that you are coming up with that on your own. And I know we have lots of different things to help us these days, but really make sure that you are understanding, representing that information in your own words. Okay. I think those are the big things. This is quite a hefty project. So it is something that, again, you're going to want to spend some time on. And I hope you enjoy learning as much as possible about it. But this is a project that's going to bring up some questions. So if you have questions about your topic or a particular program you'd like to use for your multimedia project, please feel free to reach out to me. And I hope you enjoy learning as much about your, little blip in history as I'm going to enjoy hearing how you interpret it.